Today I am not in my usual filming location. I am in a ravine in Toronto because the common area in my condo we are not allowed to enter because of the coronavirus.
So yes, people, the coronavirus impacts vloggers as well.
Okay, so just before I get started with the video, I have a quick update for everyone. So originally my channel was going to be focused on helping graduate students, life in graduate school, but I'm going to expand it to all things academia. So if you're in academia in general, I'll be talking a lot about issues related to academics. And this is just because a good friend of mine pointed out that very, very few people actually are interested in applying to graduate programs in psychology and neuroscience. Okay, so my video today is going to be focused on how to get into graduate school. If you're an undergraduate student or even a postgrad who's interested in psychology, neuroscience, or any related field, I'm going to be giving you my 5 tips on how to actually get accepted or at least get an interview to graduate schools. The first and most important thing to gaining an interview to graduate school is having good grades. Duh! Some people don't have good grades, but they have mad hookup skills, and then they gain entrance into graduate school because they know someone, or at least they've shown that they can do research even though they have shitty undergrad grades. So if you do have shitty undergrad grades, it doesn't mean you can't go to grad school. It just means you have to make connections and show people that you can do really great research even though you didn't do well in your undergrad. But for those of you who are still in your undergrad, the number one thing I would suggest is to make sure you get pretty good grades. And by good grades, generally what graduate schools are looking for are an A- average in the last 2 years. That's for both Canada and the States. So grades aren't necessarily a way to determine who would be the best candidate, but they are a method that graduate schools use to weed people out. So the difference between someone with A+ grades and A grades, or A grades and A- grades, this won't be really a factor in determining who gets in. And even though I hate judging people based on their grades, I get it. I get why schools do this. That is because the same qualities that help you get good grades in your undergrad, like perseverance, like hard work, conscientiousness, having a good work ethic, all of those qualities are required to succeed in graduate school, especially in a 5-year PhD program. So the 5th requirement that you need to get into graduate school is to write the General Record Exam, or the GRE. That is if you're applying to schools in the United States or in Canada. Europe does not require this exam. Depending on your school, they'll have a different cutoff for what grade you actually need to get into the program. I know in Canada, the cutoff doesn't matter so much, but in the States, especially if you're applying to Ivy League schools, it matters quite a bit, and the cutoffs are pretty high. I think this requirement is really dumb because it inherently puts people who don't have enough money or don't have as much money at a disadvantage. That being said, university costs even more than that, or college in the US costs even more than this exam. So what are you gonna do, world? The other reason why I think this exam is dumb is because it turns out apparently a lot of schools don't actually use these scores to determine whether you get in. So if they really like you as a candidate and you have pretty good grades, the scores, at least in Canada, on this exam really don't matter. A lot of my peers who are in my cohort did really poorly on the exam, but still got into the program, making me wonder why I stressed out and studied so hard for this expensive exam. I think the performance on the exam does probably measure something meaningful. What it's supposed to measure is your basic quantitative skills and your vocabulary, your English skills, your writing skills that presumably you've accumulated over the course of your education. Okay, so 4th, if you are applying to a research-based program, please participate in research before you apply. You're gonna be doing research for 4 freaking years, maybe 5 years. It's a lot of your life, so you really gotta be sure that you actually like doing it. Plus, participating in research before you get into your program will ensure that people know that you can do research. Another benefit of doing research before you apply for grad school is you make connections. So that means that you're not applying for grad school on your own. You have some sort of supervisor who will vouch for you and tell whoever you want to work with, yes, this person is an awesome applicant. People who get good reference letters will get into programs, will be more likely to get into programs over people who do not have good reference letters. So do research before you apply. You can volunteer at your school, you can volunteer in a lab, for heaven's sakes. Just email the supervisor or email graduate students in the lab, say that you want to volunteer in the lab. Dedicate some time to it. If you can't volunteer, see if you can get a research position over the summer. There's often opportunities at schools providing funding for students who are really interested to do research in the summer. Or, of course, enroll in a class that has you work with a lab to do some sort of like honors thesis. So my fourth tip is to get to know the people that you're working with. Get to know the supervisor you're working with. So they will write you an awesome reference letter so you can really shine when you apply to grad school. So the reason why grades don't matter as much as you might think is because after a certain point, other factors come into play. Your personality comes into play. Whether or not you're a reasonable person comes into play. People are really looking for research fit. They want to know that they're committing to this person, they're taking on this person for 5 years. They want to make sure that it'll be a good working relationship. And whether you got an A+ or an A in chemistry 101 doesn't really matter at this point. So if you can form good relationships with the supervisor that you're volunteering with or a lab you're volunteering with your undergrad, if they write you an awesome reference letter vouching that you are an excellent candidate, this can make a load of difference to your application. Okay, sun is basically set and I'm almost on my list. So the last and final thing I would recommend is clarify your interest to yourself. So when you write your letter of interest to graduate schools, you often have to tell the graduate school what your interests are and what you think you would be researching in graduate school. So clarify your interests before graduate school and before writing your letter. And since you're applying to work with a specific person, you gotta ask yourself, what about this person's research excites you? What problems do you want to solve with them, and how does it relate to their vision, their research vision for where their lab is going? What gaps in the literature can you identify that you think they would be really, really interested in? If you look at the papers that they've published, what questions do you have remaining that they may not have answered that maybe they would be interested in answering with you? So those were the 5 most important factors that will help you get into grad school. I hope you found this video useful, and if you are interested in learning more about grad school, what it's like to grow up in grad school between the ages of like 24 to 30, which is what happened to me, things that will help you survive in grad school, how to avoid anxiety and depression in grad school, etc., etc., etc. Please subscribe to my channel and I will be talking all about it. Hopefully not outside next time. Thanks for listening.